Matt Damon. Matt Damon.
Hey, listen up, everybody. Got a little special thing I'd like to do tonight. And play a little song for you about the nastiest, freakiest little sex puppet I know, Fiona. This one's for you, baby. Happy anniversary.
Scotty doesn't know that Fiona and me do it in my van every Sunday. She tells him she's in church, but she doesn't go. Still, she's on her knees.
Scott Adams, creator of the Dilbert cartoon series, has been asking on social media lately how the anti-vaxxers supposedly knew that certain interventions into a certain coronavirus would fail.
Strike?
I'm not saying they did. I'm just saying that he asked that question. He asks it in such a sanctimonious, bitchy way that he's implying that we were just lucky because somehow we knew things that were unknowable at the time. It goes along with the same excuse, well, we didn't know at the time what the mortality blah, blah, blah was, so we were just being careful. Well, you see, the thing is, we're not saying that we knew anything. We specifically said that we don't know. But there were certain things that we knew. Among them was when we were little, we always wondered, well, they were giving us vaccines for measles, mumps, and rubella, and pertussis, and tetanus, and all this other stuff that I've taken, that I've given to my kids. Why isn't there a vaccine for the common cold? Well, there can't be a cure for the common cold, we were told as children. And how do I know that? How do I know that that's not misinformation? Because Anthony Fauci says it himself. A paper written on January 11th, 2023 by three people, David M. Morans, Jeffrey K. Taubenberger, and look at that, Anthony S. Fauci.
Anthony S. Fauci.
Yeah, I've heard of him before. What's the summary say? What does it say about, common cold viruses like coronaviruses? I wonder what it's here. Summary: viruses that replicate in the human respiratory mucosa without infecting systemically, including influenza A, SARS-CoV-2, endemic coronaviruses, RSV, and many other common cold viruses, cause significant mortality and morbidity and are important public health concerns. Because these viruses generally do not elicit complete and durable protective immunity by themselves, they have not to date been effectively controlled by licensed or experimental vaccines. Concluding remarks: durably protective vaccines against non-systemic mucosal respiratory viruses with high mortality rates have thus far eluded vaccine development efforts. Thus far, which means including the ones that were just developed by Pfizer. Past unsuccessful attempts to elicit solid protection against mucosal respiratory viruses and to control the deadly outbreaks and pandemics they cause have been a scientific and public health failure that must be urgently addressed. Or really, in my opinion, urgently ignored because we have immune systems. We are excited and invigorated. You're great. I'm so excited that you're invigorated. That many investigators and collaborative groups are rethinking from the ground up all of our past assumptions and approaches to preventing important respiratory viral diseases and working to find bold new paths forward. How about this, Anthony? There's no cure for the common cold. You get sick, you build up immunity, you get sick again, you build up more immunity, you go on with life, and you stop trying to conquer the entire microbial world as if you were the god of nature. And at least if you want to do that, don't lock us in our damn houses. Do what you want and leave us the hell alone. Anthony, what is it with your misinformation these days? Don't you know that you are the science? What else do we know about vaccines? Well, let's go to Google, the purveyor of truth these days, and ask it a very simple question. Average time for testing vaccines. Enter. Well, what does it say? Typical timeline, Johns Hopkins University. Is that a purveyor of misinformation? A typical vaccine development timeline takes 5 to 10 years, and sometimes longer, to assess whether the vaccine is safe and efficacious in clinical trials.
Many scientists are beginning to believe that a vaccine against AIDS may be impossible to make and too dangerous to test. If you take it and then a year goes by and everybody's fine, then you say, okay, that's good. Now let's give it to 500 people. And then a year goes by and everything's fine. Say, well, then now let's give it to thousands of people. And then you find out that it takes 12 years for all hell to break loose. And then what have you done?
How long did this one take? A few months? Out of what kind of virus was it trying to vaccinate against? A coronavirus, to which there has been no effective vaccines developed ever. That we all knew. So how did we know that this would be a failure? We didn't. But we knew that we didn't know, so we didn't risk it. But what else do we know about human nature? We know from the Milgram experiments that humans, when told to submit to authority, will inflict pain and damage and even kill people because they are told that the authority will be responsible and they will maintain no moral culpability.
Participants didn't know that the learner was really an actor and the so-called sharks harmless.
You're gonna get a shock, 180 volts.
I can't stand the pain. Let me out of here.
Stand it. I'm not gonna kill that man there. I mean, who's gonna take the responsibility if anything happens to that gentleman?
I'm responsible for anything that happens here. Continue, please.
2/3 of volunteers were prepared to administer a potentially fatal electric shock when encouraged to do so.
So they are obedient to the point of murder. What do we know from the Ash experiments? We know that when people are faced with a crowd that is clearly telling them the wrong thing, they will conform with the wrong information, with lies, in order to fit in with the crowd.
Only one of the people in the group is a real subject, the fifth person with the white t-shirt. The others are confederates of the experimenter and have been told to give wrong answers on some of the trials. In the third trial, something happens.
Two.
The subject denies the evidence of his own eyes and yields to group influence. This subject's yielding is based on a distortion of his judgment. He genuinely believes that the group is correct. In this case, the subject knows he is right, but goes along to avoid the discomfort of disagreeing with the group.
What do we know from the Stanford prison experiment? That when people are put into positions of authority, they will abuse that authority and hurt their fellow man.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. This experiment will be an extension of my research into the effects prisons can have on human behavior.
You're going to be pleased to know that you all have been chosen to be the prison guards.
Those are not prisoners. Those are not subjects. Those are boys, and you are harming them.
Wait! Let me out of here! I want out! I want out now!
You thought you were gonna get some playtime in the yard, boy? Is that what you thought this was gonna be?
I had no idea it would turn out this way.
And so we know that human psychology never changes. And when you have the pressure of authority and people saying the wrong thing all at the same time, and enforcers being put in the position of bullies, you will have the recipe for another genocide. That is how humans behave. And we say never again. Yeah, we say never again. But human psychology doesn't change. You just have to be aware of it. And when it's happening, you, individual who understands what I'm saying, has to wake up, because nobody else will. And what about Scott Adams? Well, Scotty doesn't know.
Scotty doesn't know. Oh, Scotty doesn't know. So don't tell Scotty. Scotty doesn't know. Scotty doesn't know.
We had the humility and the temerity to say, no, we will not experiment on ourselves, and there is nothing you can do to force us. We remembered what we learned in kindergarten, that there is no cure for the common cold. We know that vaccines take 10 to 15 years to develop, and most of all, we knew that nobody really knew if these medications or interventions or whatever the hell you want to call them would be safe. And that's why we declined. We knew that humans can be manipulated into harming their fellow man. We knew that humans can be manipulated into saying outright lies by the Ash experiments. And we knew that humans could be turned into abusive creatures by the Stanford prison experiment. We knew all of this because we were taught it in elementary school and high school. And we were taught never again, and that in order for never again to be implemented, that we had to stand up to the crowd, which is what we did. So no, it wasn't luck. It was common sense and morality. That's what it was. And if you don't understand that, then you're just another victim of the Milgram experiment and the Ash experiment and the Stanford prisoner experiment. But most of you people are, and most of you always will be. But don't tell Scotty, because Scotty doesn't know.
I did it on his birthday. Scotty doesn't know, Scotty doesn't know, Scotty doesn't know, Scotty doesn't know. Don't tell Scotty, Scotty doesn't know.
This man rocks!